and we're going to bring on the hardest worker at Chatterbox Sports, Craig Sandlin, to talk about our Cincinnati Bengals. Craig, thank you so much. I think I texted you about 10 minutes before the show started and said, hey, you want to come on and talk Bengals? And I'm so gracious for your time. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, I appreciate the heads up. Gave me a lot of time to do some research, make sure I had all my stats in order for you, Reed. This is going to be a great appearance, let me tell you.
All right, so this weekend, Bengals are 3-6. They go up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last time I talked to you was at the end of Monday. The news comes out. Joe Burrow's coming back. He's going to be practicing, and we're like, all right, I guess we're going for this thing. I guess it's happening. And then you start realizing, okay, well, we've already used the excuses of this is a must-win, and this is a must-win, and this is a must-win. It doesn't make any sense for the Bengals to make the postseason unless they win this game this Sunday. 6-point underdogs, how do you think they get it done?
6-point underdogs. They get it done on offense, just like they have all season long. I mean, it's the only way they've been able to win games so far is just by outscoring people. And I think there's a couple matchups that certainly the Bengals are going to have to figure out. The running game defense has been atrocious. Jaylen Warren gashed them for 127 last time. And this Bengals team for years now has not been able to guard a tight end to save their life. Pat Freiermuth went off for 111 and 2 touchdowns against them last time. This Pittsburgh receiving crew is not very deep. So if there is a weakness, it's that tight end spot in terms of the Bengals defense. So they held DK Metcalf in check. They held Roman Wilson, Scotty Miller, all these other guys in check. But that tight end position continues to gash them. And Pat Freiermuth did it last time. And who knows, maybe Jonnu Smith will go off this week.
Last time we saw Aaron Rodgers play, not here in Cincinnati, but just the last time that Aaron Rodgers played, I think to characterize it, he looked a little scared at times. He was definitely off. And part of it was because the opposing team got some pressure on him. The Bengals are, of course, going to be without Trey Hendrickson. More than likely going to be without Trey. They're going to be without Trey Hendrickson. And more importantly, so they're going to be without Shamar Stewart this Sunday. Is there any reason to think that the Bengals will be able to generate any pressure and continue to make Aaron Rodgers feel a little uncomfortable in the pocket? Because the boy can still
no. No, not really. I mean, I know a lot of people are high on Antoine Powell-Ryland, who they just signed this past week. I don't really know if we're even going to see him much this week, if at all. They signed him to the practice squad, so we'll see if they elevate him. Certainly with Shamar down, Trey most likely down, it would make a lot of sense to see Antoine Powell-Ryland and let him go and see what him and Cedric Johnson can do. But there's no real indication just yet that that's going to happen. And even if they do, there's a reason that Antoine Powell-Ryland was on the practice squad. There's a reason he was cut from Philadelphia. So we're kind of putting a lot of hope in college production and what we saw from the combine and everything else. But we haven't really had a chance to really know what we got there other than a project and somebody that maybe has some high ceiling, but we don't really know yet. So no, I don't have a whole lot of faith in it. But it'll be interesting to see if Al Golden dials up some unique pressures, tries to get some blitzing going, or if he just sits back and tries to guard the receivers and the tight ends, because it worked so well last time.
Yeah, it feels like we're watching this defense, and it feels like when you're desperate, as this defense is, when you get desperate, you're just like, all right, we got to try something new, right? We can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And we had Jay Morrison on earlier this week, and he's talking about how this scheme is so simple because it has to be simple because the players aren't good enough. And I'll just throw up my hands and be like, well, that's not working either. Can we start blitzing like crazy to where, like, hey, if we're gonna give up 560 yards, at least they'll get down the field quicker, and we can get back on offense? Do you think that this is finally a time where Al Golden starts dialing up some pressure, starts dialing up, hey, we're gonna start sending 5-6 guys more often than not, because the 4 guys we're sending is just not getting it done?
I mean, there's no better time than now, right? I mean, your season's on the line. You're coming off of a bye weeks where you had extra time to prepare for unique packages like that. Certainly seems like if it's going to happen, now's the time to do it. The problem and the question is do you have guys that you trust to either be able to get that pressure in the blitz and also on the back end be able to guard long enough to let them get home. And that's the question. You don't have guys like Mike Hilton anymore who were able to perfectly time up his blitz packages to be able to get home so quickly. So yeah, I mean, now's certainly the time to do it if you're going to, but we haven't seen basically any of that so far this year without Golden. Everything's been very vanilla. He's got his little play sheet that's basically a quarter sheet of paper, and that's his entire playbook. And I think most D coordinators are the same way. They don't have a ton of looks, but there's got to be something that allows them to kind of create some pressure on an Aaron Rodgers and force him to get rid of this ball sooner than later, because otherwise he's going to gash you down the field with guys like Freiermuth and DK Metcalf.
Are you worried at all that Joe Flacco isn't going to play on Sunday? Like, is that work? Because I before we got on the show, I was just like, are we? Because I know he's had some updates. I know he's thrown a few times. Are you worried at all about Joe Flacco not playing this Sunday?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, he had the bye week. He was as far as I know, he practiced yesterday. I saw a video of him out there throwing. No, but
okay.
I'll turn around and say, as crazy as it may sound, I'm not going to be shocked if Joe Burrow tries to come back for New England next week. I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily the plans right now, but
it's not the plan. Why do you think that?
It's not. I know Joe Burrow, at least from what I've seen, and if he's healthy, he's going to want to be out there. And everything we've seen, from reports from practices to videos from practices to everything in between, he seems to be moving okay. He's obviously throwing the ball okay. I just think that he's going to want to force his way out there sooner than later. And I think he knows that the clock is ticking. And even though he's not a linebacker or safety, as a lot of people like to point out on social media, he's still the heartbeat of this team and the leader of this team. And I think that his goal is going to be to get out there as soon as he can. And I think that he knows that this is a pivotal stretch for this team. And that's why he had it circled early on for his return, was to try and get back for that Thanksgiving game against the Ravens. But I think he's seen how things have gone. And I think that he knows that he's got to do everything in his power to get back. And that may mean coming back even ahead of schedule beyond what he thought he was going to be able to do. And it's crazy to say that he might be back next week, but I for one, am not going to be shocked if it happens, just because I think that's the type of competitor that Joe Burrow is. And even though Joe Flacco has played out of his mind, even though the offense has certainly found its groove with Joe Flacco behind center, I just think that Joe Burrow is going to want to go out there and do what Joe Burrow does. And that means that he's going to be playing. And a lot of the conversations we've had, Reed, is going to be, what, if anything, has Zach Taylor learned from the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks, in terms of this offense and its efficiency, in terms of the run game and going under center and play action. I'm on the optimistic side. I think Joe Burrow's coming back next week because I'm crazy.
Right.
And on the other side, I think that Zach Taylor's going to revert right back to that 95% shotgun look, not running the ball, not doing what's been working for them on offense over the last several weeks. And we're all going to be sitting here questioning a lot of decisions.
There's a lot of things that you could say about you believing that Joe Burrow might play next Sunday. Optimistic is one of them. There's also some other things you can say about it. Let me ask you this, because me and Stone have been
Look,
been
I have no reason to actually believe that that's going to happen, but I'm just sitting here looking at the situation that we're in with this season, the way that I know Joe Burrow is a little wacko in the head, and I just wouldn't be surprised if he tries to come back next week.
I hear you. Let me ask you this then. It's undoubted he's coming back at some point this season. Like, he's doing that. Like, he is going to play regardless of the outcome. As a fan, they lose this Sunday. He doesn't play next week, as you think that he might. He doesn't play next week. They lose to the Patriots. They're 3-8 going into Thanksgiving. Do you want him to play? Do you want him to play the rest of this schedule? He's going to. He's going to play when he's healthy and can. Do you want him to if they're 3-8?
Not really. I mean,
Thank you.
The thing is like, I think I think that if we're truly being honest with ourselves, Reed, is that whether we like it or not, Joe Burrow has earned the injury prone tag.
Oh,
And
100%. 100%.
the only thing you're doing by putting him out there with a 3-8 team with 6 weeks left to play in the season is risking an injury. And the last thing you need as the Cincinnati Bengals is to risk Joe Burrow not being healthy for spring next year or for training camp next year and then being set back yet again. And, we've had this conversation. I think it's perfectly within reason to think that if Joe Burrow doesn't play because the Bengals are so far out of it, which I don't think is going to happen, that they continue to falter. They end the season with 4 to 6 wins, and Zach Taylor is not your head coach next year. And what happens if Joe Burrow tries to come back? He gets hurt. He misses out on an entire offseason with a new coaching staff trying to learn a new offense. And now all of a sudden you're coming in to next season, a season that yet again is going to be labeled as a season that you should be Super Bowl contenders, regardless of how this year goes. And you're doing it without your star quarterback being there for training camp because he got hurt in a meaningless season. I mean, we just watched Jaden Daniels go down with a significant elbow injury 2 weeks ago in a game where he had no business being in it.
Correct.
We see it all the time where guys get hurt in meaningless games. And whether we like it or not, Joe Burrow has a responsibility to this team long term to make sure that he is healthy to be their quarterback. And I don't know that doing that in a 3-8 loss season makes a ton of sense.
Thank you. You hear that, Stone? This guy's got some sense to him. He's got some sense to him. And listen, I understand.
That doesn't mean that he's not going to play, though, Reed. That's the difference.
He's going
to play.
He's going to play, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. It just straight up doesn't, and I can't get it beyond my brain that we have this guy. You said it. I've been saying it. Anyone that doesn't think that Joe Burrow is injury prone, you're living in a land, or you're taking in full advantage of the decriminalized marijuana here in Ohio, because you're living at a high that I can't get to. Because he is, just point blank, he is. And I want to protect him with every bone in my body, because I don't know how many bones I can see him break before my brain breaks. So I'm with you 100%. If we lose these games, I don't want him to play. He's going to play, so why do I keep bringing it up? Because I think it's just lunacy on a team that's full of lunacy, in an organization that's full of lunacy. It's just another case point of, all right, well, we're doing this again. And I want to say this, and I don't know who I'm saying it to. I guess we know who I'm saying it to, because he sits to my left in the studio here, and he's been beating the drum that he wants him to play. If the Bengals are 3-8, and Joe Burrow comes back in December for that Thanksgiving game on, and he gets hurt in one of those games, I want an I'm sorry. I want an I'm sorry from those people that wanted him to come back and play, because we all know it doesn't make a lick of sense, Craig.
Yeah, here's the only thing that I'll follow that comment up with, is that the one positive of him coming back and playing, if we want to call it a positive, that I truly believe that Joe Burrow has a lot he can learn from Joe Flacco. And I do think that the one place you can learn that is in game situations. And I'm hoping that Zach Taylor has learned a lot from Joe Flacco. I'm hoping that Joe Burrow on the sidelines has learned from Joe Flacco. And I'm hoping that this offense can adjust and evolve in a way that they've seen Joe Flacco be uber successful over the last several weeks, and say, okay, look, we have an opportunity to continue to be good. We have an opportunity to protect Joe Burrow. Here's how we do it. And it's by running. It's by Joe Burrow being a little bit better pre-snap, by recognizing blitz packages and recognizing coverages and understanding where his reads are. I don't think that Joe Burrow is necessarily bad at that, but I do think that there's been, for years now, there's been opportunities where Joe Burrow could put himself in better places where maybe he's not necessarily doing that because of his faith in his ability to make plays. And that's where the kind of challenge comes from, is that we've seen him make incredible plays by scrambling and trying to get away and waiting for receivers to get open and not taking your check downs and not throwing the ball away. But we've also seen him get hurt over and over again because of it. And so at some point, every great quarterback learns to take what the defense gives you and live for another down. And I think if anything right now, that's Joe Burrow's weakness. And I think we've seen from Joe Flacco time and time again that he's more than willing to take whatever the defense gives him and live for another down. And I hope that that message is being passed along to Zach Taylor and to Joe Burrow. And that hopefully as Joe Burrow continues to age, because remember, he was old coming out of college to begin with, that hopefully he can take that to heart and we can see a Joe Burrow that maybe is a little bit more conservative. Some people may say that's not a good thing, but for me, I think he's one of the most accurate passers in the NFL. I think that when he's healthy, he's definitely one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think that ultimately the best way to make sure that he's on the field as much as possible is for him to be a little bit less careless when it comes to those situations.
And he pretty clearly has really good weapons around him that can get open with ease very early in a play to where he can. And I'll say this: I've got a point about what you said about Joe Flacco, but before I get there, have you ever been a financial advisor, Craig?
Have I ever been a financial advisor?
Yeah. No, right?
No.
Neither have I, but I've heard the phrase.
I have a financial advisor.
I've heard the phrase risk assessment, and I'm going to try and butcher it right here. And you're right that there is something small to gain. You are right that there is something that he can learn from Joe Flacco and to improve his game. But before Joe Flacco even stepped foot here in Cincinnati in the Paycor Stadium on the Bengals sideline, Joe Burrow was already an elite quarterback. Yeah, there's room to grow. Yeah, there's room to get better. But the risk of him getting hurt again and shortening his career already drastically beyond what we've already seen with all the injuries, the amassed of injuries, that greatly outweighs the pros of him learning from Joe Flacco. But I will say this. Sometimes strength can come out of weakness. Sometimes you can gain strength out of weakness. That's Joe Flacco's game. Joe Flacco fully understands when he drops back, when he's playing quarterback, he cannot escape a sack. He cannot get around it. He knows he has to get rid of the ball. He has to read the defenses to be successful in this league. That is a weakness of his, that he cannot escape a sack. He is not mobile enough, and it has become a strength in his game by being able to read defenses and deliver strikes. Joe Burrow doesn't have that weakness. He can escape a sack from time to time. He does have that mobility. But he can learn that strength the same way that Joe Flacco is. So I understand what you're saying, and I do think that there is a possibility for Joe Burrow to learn that. But when it comes to risk assessment here, I want to take the easy side. And, hey, it's 3-8. Let's protect our $250 million quarterback with everything we've got. But they won't. He's going to play.
What happens when they win this weekend?
Well, then I want him to play. I want him to play. Yeah, if they are 3-0 in the AFC North, and even if they're 4-7 going into that Thanksgiving game against the Baltimore Ravens, I want Joe Burrow to play because there is some hope still alive. But when hope's not there, I'm out. I'm out on him playing. But I'm also yelling at the wall because no one's listening, and he's going to play once he's healthy because Zach Taylor and Duke Tobin are fighting for their job, because this Bengals team needs to get people in the stadium so they can make more money. Because of all those things, they have too much tied up into Joe Burrow. But I would also argue that it's probably a more advantageous long-term goal of keeping him healthy in terms of financial situation. Craig, thank you so much for coming on here on such short notice. I'll see you on Sunday.
Yes, sir.
All right.
See you then.
Yeah, Bengals watch along this Sunday. Thanks, Craig.